Assalamualaikum. I'm Asmahani Mama Hanapi from Politeknik Kota Bharu, Kelantan, Malaysia. Today I will present my research with topic Determinant of Tax Non-Compliant among Taxpayer. For the introduction, IRBM, informally known as the Inland Revenue Department of Malaysia, is a one-of government agency in Malaysia which functioning to enforcing, assessing, administering and collecting direct income tax in Malaysia, which following the Income Tax Act 1967. However, IRBM, like other tax collection organizations, has a difficult time dealing with the non-compliant with income tax law. So for an effective self-assessment system, high level of voluntary compliance by taxpayer are required. Intentional non-compliance occur when taxpayers make decisions and take activity to avoid compliance at the price of being fully informed about the tax system and its non-compliant consequences. It can take two forms, whether tax evasion and tax avoidance, both of which involve altering personal affairs in order to lower tax liability. Tax evasion and avoidance are the most common form of tax non-compliance, and they are commonly regarded as a critical factor restricting revenue mobilization. For the problem statement, Malaysian government revenue fell in the third quarter of 2021, down from 56 million in the second quarter. The federal government revenue for 2021 is expected to be lower at RM 221 million or 14.6% of GDP, a 6.7% decrease from previous budget forecast. This is because of the revenue shortage caused by the decreasing tax collection. Another problem came from the tax evasion. Tax evasion is a problem in the economy of most countries, including Malaysia. From 15 million individual taxpayers in Malaysia, only 15% file tax return with the tax authority. That is from June 2018. Furthermore, according to June 2013, individual taxpayers have a higher percentage of non-compliant than corporate taxpayers. The Inland Revenue Board has identified 79,000 people, business, organizations, and cooperatives that have not paid their tax. According to the tax audit conducted by the National Revenue Recovery Enforcement Team, many big-name officials were wary of unreserved personal incomes. After the implementation of a big data analytic tool in 2018, the IRB identified nearly 18,000 taxpayers who have remarkable wealth but have yet to report income or have underdeclared their income. There are three objectives developed in this study. First objective is to examine the relationship between the tax knowledge and tax non-compliance. Second objective is to examine the relationship between the ethic and tax non-compliance. Third objective is to examine the relationship between the government quality and tax non-compliance. Meanwhile, for the research question is, for the question one is, what is the relationship between the tax knowledge and tax non-compliant? Second question is, what is the relationship between the ethic and tax non-compliant? And the last question is, what is the relationship between the government quality and tax non-compliant? For literature review, Malaysian income tax system was established in 1948 by the British colonial government. Income tax law were merged and changed in 1967 to produce a uniform federal income tax law that was adopted by Malaysian Parliament. From 1947 until 2000, Malaysian income tax law was calculated using the official assessment system, which allowed taxpayers to simply provide the information needed for the IRB to calculate their tax burden appropriately. Between 2001 and 2004, the OAS was replaced with the self-assessment system, which had the various unwanted and unsatisfactory flow. To promote tax compliance and assessment processing, the SAS required taxpayers to take responsibility for computing taxable income and evaluating tax liability via a do-it-yourself procedure. The theory of reason action (TRA) was used in this study. This theory has been utilized to describe human behavior as a dominating theoretical framework. Two separate drivers of attention are postulated by the TRA, which is attitude toward behavior and subjective norm. The goal of TRA is to get people to think about what they want to do before they do it. The motivating elements that drive behavior are considered to be captured by the attention. Attitude in this study best described the independent variable is a government quality, and meanwhile subjective norm in this study which regarding the independent variable which is ethic. Here is the conceptual framework for my study. Okay, for the independent variable, there are three variables, which is text knowledge, ethic, and government quality. For the dependent variable, there is the text non-compliant. In the literature review, I will explain four variables that are using in this study. There are first tax non-compliant. Okay, tax non-compliant according to the Richardson 2016 is the act of breaking tax restriction set by the tax regulator in order to lower or avoid filing a tax return. In the meantime, Tilahun 2019 claimed that the tax non-compliant occur either intentionally or unintentionally. Failure to provide a tax return within a particular period, non-submission of a tax return, overstatement of expenses, and understatement of revenue are all examples of tax non-compliant. For the second variable is the tax knowledge. Tax knowledge, according to the Majanti and Karim 2017, is the most influential factor in the tax assessment system. Furthermore, Rahayu et al. 2017 suggests that the most relevant measure of tax awareness were knowledge and the understanding of a country tax function. Higher tax knowledge lead to a more favorable assessment of the tax system. Meanwhile, for ethics, it's referred to a moral mindset that guides human act and business decision as well as a portion of people's attitude towards their activities. Ethics in the context of tax non-compliance has been thoroughly studied from various perspectives. According to Navira 2016, the ethical obligation to comply with tax compliance is contingent on the ethical behavior, value, and the ethical attitude of other taxpayers. On the other hand, the social ethical viewpoint assumes that the taxpayer base their tax-paying decision on their ethical conviction, and from a rational standpoint, self-interest maximization is the fundamental motivator of tax non-compliance. And for the government quality, Masood et al. 2019 defined government power in terms of the ability to detect tax evasion and the legal power to sanction non-compliance. To improve compliance, the government must be open about public expenditure and taxpayers must be open about the public funding. That is from ROSIT 2017. Meanwhile, according to Pitching 2013, the government is perceived as a failure to practice its rectitude and unable to act in the best interest of taxpayer, causing taxpayer to resist compliance because they believe their tax contribution is not used effectively and efficiently. So, three hypotheses was developed based on the three independent variables in this study. First hypothesis is there is a positive relationship between the tax knowledge and tax non-compliance among the academician in Malaysia. Second hypothesis is there is a negative relationship between the tax ethic and tax non-compliance. And the third hypothesis is there is a negative relationship between the government quality and tax non-compliance among academicians in Malaysia. For the methodology, in this study used a quantitative approach where the academician tax non-compliance was treated as a variable that could be measured in the questionnaire. The total number of lecturers at Politeknik Kota Bharu was 374. According to Roscoe's 1965, suggests that a sample size greater than 30 and less than 500 is suitable for most behavioral study. Therefore, a total of 33 lecturers from various departments at Politeknik Kota Bharu were selected. Respondents will receive an online survey via WhatsApp group to answer the question in Google Form, and the participation was strictly voluntary. The questionnaires consist of 5 sections, which aim at studying the tax non-compliance. It consists of respondent profile, tax knowledge, ethics, government quality, and tax non-compliant. This study used a 5-point Likert scale with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being highly agree. The data were analyzed using SPSS version 26. For the finding, table 1 show the profile of the respondent. It showed that the most of respondent was female with age 41 until 60 years. Most of respondent were undergraduate and degree holder with 72.7%, and mostly the respondent were Malay and had involved as taxpayer more than 10 years. The table 2 shows the descriptive statistic for the variable of this study, like tax non-compliant, tax knowledge, ethics, and government quality. These variables were analyzed in terms of minimum, maximum, mean, and standard deviation. Result was indicate that the minimum value for variable range from 1 to 2.75. The maximum value for the range from 4 to 5. The mean value were between 2.58 to 4.14. Finally, the standard deviation was in the range of between 0.583 and 0.823. In order to explain the strength and direction of the linear relation between two variables, correlation analysis or Pearson correlation is used. The interaction between the independent variable, tax knowledge, ethics, and government quality with the dependent variable of tax non-compliance was calculated for this analysis. The strength of correlation is shown by the table 3, which show the three relationships which are strong relationship with R plus minus 0.5 to 1. Moderate relationship is R is equal to plus minus 0.3 to 0.49, and weak relationship with R is equal to plus minus 0.1 to 0.29, with which is according to Palin 2010. Thus, in this study, Pearson correlation, the results show the association between the tax knowledge, ethics, and the government quality. Ethic variable is highly correlated with the value of 0.449 to tax non-compliant, with significant at P is less than 0.001. In the meantime, government quality is moderate relationship with 0.408 were positive correlated to tax non-compliant. Significant value is P is less than 0.05, and the last tax knowledge is weak relationship with the tax non-compliant, with correlation value were below than 0.3. For the next finding was multiple regression. Multiple regression analysis was used in this study to assess the relationship between the tax non-compliant, tax knowledge, ethics, and government quality. The outcome of regression analysis is shown in table 4. The first objective of the study is to investigate the relationship between the first element in the tax non-compliant, namely tax knowledge. As proposed in the first hypothesis, tax knowledge has a positive relationship with tax non-compliant. The correlation coefficient for tax knowledge was 0.275, with T is equal to 1.529 and P is equal to 0.137. Based on the result, there was no significant relationship between the tax knowledge and tax non-compliant. For the second hypothesis, H2 predict a negative relationship between the ethic with the tax non-compliant. Based on the regression analysis, it shows a significant negative relationship between ethic and tax non-compliant with the coefficient value of 0.378, with T is equal to 2.897 and P is equal to 0.007, where P is less than 0.05. And the third hypothesis also suggests a negative relationship between the government quality with tax non-compliant. Table 4 demonstrates a significant negative relationship between the government quality with a tax non-compliant, with the coefficient value of 0.442, with T is equal to 2.444 and P is equal to 0.021. Thus, Hypothesis 3 is also supported where P is equal 0.05. For the discussion, first, tax knowledge, based on Act 2009, said that when the tax system is seen as fair by taxpayer, they are more likely to follow the tax regulation. However, the study finding was different with Act 2009. The study finding contradict it for a variety of reasons. The first reason is because the tax knowledge trait were not included in the prior researcher claim. The second reason could be that the taxpayer has no choice but to obey the tax system and pay whenever it is required. For the ethics discussion, tax compliance according to Mengoting et al. 2018 involves societal norms that govern taxpayer moral behavior with tax non-compliance. These study findings are comparable to those of previous study. In this study, our social norm of taxpayers have an impact on their compliant behavior. According to Asmahani 2020, when a person sees the society around him embrace a good norm as a good norm, he or she will accept it as well. Meanwhile, when a bad norm is accepted as a good norm, the individual accepts it as a good norm for himself. For the next discussion of independent variable, which is government quality, the government quality indicator according to Kaufman et al. 2010 include government efficacy in providing high quality public goods, enacting legislation and controlling corruption. From here, government quality become a key factor in encouraging tax compliance. Essentially, a taxpayer decision to comply or not to comply with tax regulation is largely influenced by their attitude about the administrated governments. For the conclusion, in a nutshell, notwithstanding the tax assessment system, individual taxpayers in Malaysia continue to contribute to non-compliance. It is crucial to highlight, however, that all of these drivers of tax non-compliance are interconnected and hence influence each other in a variety of ways, leading to the individual opposition to compliance. All of the determinants are interrelated in this case, with tax non-compliance acting as a dependent variable except the tax knowledge. The current study looked at the impact of tax knowledge, ethics, and the government quality of tax non-compliance as a whole. So for the future researcher should attempt to dissect this variable and independently evaluate the association between each dimension of tax compliant behavior. This would most likely provide more information about the influence of each dimension on tax evasion behavior. Okay, here is all my reference in this study. So I think that's all for my presentation today. Thank you, everyone.